Ladies and gentlemen, people of all gender expressions, thank you for checking out the North Bank Media Podcast. I am your host, Patrick Strevens. Now, joining me on the show this morning was Mira Uniat. And to be quite frank, I have no idea what she does for a living. I don't even think we talked about it. I think if you listen to the conversation, you understand why that really doesn't matter in this context. She was one of the first people to reach out to me after hearing the podcast and taking me up on that open invitation to come on the show as a guest. And again, that goes for anybody listening. And we had a great conversation about spirituality, higher consciousness, her personal journey, her spiritual awakening, and, some thoughts about how to approach life in a way that is sort of non-egocentric, in a sort of higher or more enlightened approach to what life might be. Some of it I don't necessarily understand just yet. Not to say I don't agree with it. But it was great to hear somebody talk very passionately and about these sorts of things. And hopefully maybe someone can hear bits and pieces of this and find it, at least as a sort of start on a journey of how we might make ourselves better and how we might make life better, at least for ourselves or maybe for others, if that's not too high of a pursuit. So really enjoyed this one. It was a lot. It's been a month since I've done one of these, and this was a good, this was a great way to get back into the saddle, so to speak. So again, appreciate anybody who's listening. Definitely check out Mira's YouTube page. I'll link all of that. Please enjoy my conversation with Mira Uniat.
Okay, let's do it.
Right on. Well, Mira, thank you for coming on the show. You're one of the first people to approach me, and I really appreciate that. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for asking, Patrick. It happened that I saw, your profile on Instagram, and you seem like a very creative person. And especially now, I'm very interested in any sort of creation that people are involved in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Right on. And how are you doing? Because early when we talked last time, you told me about your leg injury, and everybody's kind of forced to be isolated and all that, but you have kind of the extra layer of being for a while you couldn't move, I imagine. Or how's the healing going, and what happened?
Yeah. So it's been an interesting time of my life. A lot of spiritual growth, happening. I had a knee injury in December while skiing, and then because of how severe the injury was, I had to have a knee reconstruction surgery on January 11th, where they reconstructed the whole knee and put it together, like all 5 ligaments. They put the allografts and then cartilage and meniscus, like basically all the parts of the knee they had to reconstruct and put together. So it was a pretty complex injury and surgery. I wasn't mobile. I couldn't walk for a good month and a half, like minimal movement, and completely changed my life, I would say, because before this injury, I was very active and, doing lots of sports and fitness. And, this injury just put me into a completely different environment and in different circumstances. And I find that all human beings, when they are put into new circumstances, into a new environment, they are actually forced to grow. And that's what exactly happened to me. Some friends were joking, oh yeah, you're gonna grow like 25 pounds. I was like, well, my goal is to grow spiritually.
Even better. And you look good. Like was there times when it was too hard to bear, or did you always see the light at the end of the tunnel?
So when this injury happened, I would say that I was already spiritually ready for anything that could happen in our life, including the notion of death, because when I don't know if you remember, I told you my spiritual experience that I had starting in summer 2020, I would say that this injury was just an escalation and bring it to even higher level.
Mm.
And I in my life, how I see life right now is that while I am in my body, in my physical plane, nothing can scare me, even as the notion of death, when the soul leaves a person's
Mm.
body, it's not something scary as well when it happens at the right time, I would say.
Sure.
So the injury, any experience, including the injury, I just see it as being presented to me
Mm.
as an opportunity for me to uncover more and more about the depth of human consciousness that all of us has,
Mm.
and I would say that this exactly what happened. And I actually appreciate everything that happened to me and embraced it and love it.
Wow. Most people wouldn't say that. Most people would say, poor me, or maybe not, but some people would. So you're taking kind of well, we talked about this when we talked last time about how you see yourself as being even divorced from your own body or your own self, right? Where consciousness and the body are two different things. So did that point of view make it easier to get through the recovery, where you just saw yourself as, it wasn't you that was injured, it was just the physical body, maybe?
Absolutely. So that's exactly what happens to me. When I feel like my emotional state or the state of being, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we're all human beings, but
Mm-hmm.
because people are doing a lot of things, they turn into human doings.
I
but
love that.
but we are all human beings, and I think this word describes our nature.
Hmm.
So there are different states of being that we can be in. Our body is an antenna that collects information about the circumstance we're in.
Hmm.
Like, for example, my body, it's my body, but it's not me. What's mine cannot be me. I am the one who is experiencing
Hmm.
human shape and human body. So whatever information is being collected by my body, including my mind, including the parts of my body. For
Hmm.
example, my body identified that it's an injury, it's a knee injury.
Hmm.
It sends signals into my brain that there is pain and there is something that needs to be dealt with.
Hmm.
My brain then, if we cut my brain, there is nothing there saying, okay, now you have to pump blood into this area and cure it. There are no instructions like that in your brain. It collects information and sends it to consciousness.
Hmm.
And then consciousness identifies the action and thoughts and what needs to be done, and then sends back the instructions to the brain to
Right.
behave in certain way in this circumstance. So, and it happens all very fast.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why a lot of human beings confuse that brain is the one that's given instructions, because the connection between your brain and consciousness is instant.
Hmm.
There is no time, doesn't exist in those circumstances.
Hmm.
It's beyond time and space. And that's why it's, when we talk about soul and metaphysical,
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
quantum field, I would say it's already beyond something that words can describe,
Hmm.
because it happens instantly. It's like just even shorter than a moment. The communication between your consciousness and between brain is an antenna, right?
Sure.
Consciousness is the one that carries all those life experience through past lives, through evolution. If you examine human brain, there is reptilian brain component in it.
Right.
So everything evolutionary started from basic forms of life,
Hmm.
and then consciousness evolved and brought this physical body into how it is today. So there is certain type of consciousness
Hmm.
that impacts and sends directions based on previous experiences,
Hmm.
that this has to be perfected in a human body. And basically that's how evolution of the body happens.
So you're right. So you're talking about like kind of the nervous system as being a part of the physical body, like the directions of the brain to pump blood or to feel pain or whatever like that. And then, if I understand it right, consciousness is something that, does it live in the brain? In your view, or is it something, or are we a conduit which consciousness flows through?
See, consciousness is boundless. It's a
Right.
boundless ocean. In other ways to explain it, it's just an invisible energy. The whole universe is energy.
Right.
So if you look at planet Earth, there is electromagnetic, magnetic, it's covered into its own wraps, right? Something that puts it together through gravitation pole, and everything is entangled. Everything is related, everything is connected, and it creates an illusion that it's just one entity. And planet Earth also has its own consciousness, because it's a part of a bigger ocean of consciousness, or endless energy. And because of those constant energy vibrations that happen, throughout millions of years, the manifestation is happening in physical life, and the forms are being created. So what happens with human beings is that because certain impulses, certain reactions, certain causes were happening all the time in circles, that created the consciousness vibrate in certain modes all the time, and that evolved, human body and human shape to how we see and know it today. So consciousness is shapeless. It doesn't have space and time categories. It's not something you can touch. It's not something you can see by your eyes. But mind you, right now, how I feel, where planet Earth is going and the whole universe, how it's evolving, because the principle of the universe is that it's constantly evolving. It's not stagnant. It's not. But see, our mind makes us believe that that's who we are, and it's like a separate entity. It's an illusion of your mind, because even if you look at how you were born, you evolved, you collected this bunch of food, and now you are this beautiful body, know? So there was constant evolution and constant growth. And when the entity achieves certain peak of growth, then there is a decline towards, the shape is going towards decline, which in our mind, it's like elderly age. But consciousness doesn't age. It's because people start thinking that they are getting old, because they identify themselves with their body, and they feel their body is getting old. That's why they experience elder age. But in fact, that should be a peak of spiritual evolution, because during those years where the body was growing and evolving, human being has a task to also grow spiritually and uncover the eternal part within, which is consciousness.
So when you say spiritually, are you talking about the way in which we experience consciousness? Is that spiritual, or what is the spirit then?
So the spirit is something that makes you alive. Some people individualize spirit or individualize consciousness, which is the consciousness in this area of this antenna of your body. I call your body and your brain is an antenna. An antenna that collects and bound information, but also sends information back to the consciousness, because in nature, in the universe, everything is being recorded. For example, if right now I'm experiencing pain in my body, and my body is sending signals to my brain that this is happening in the knee area, and the consciousness sends back already automatically the consciousness, because from previous experiences of healing, have you ever thought that every cell of your body is directed and knows how to heal every wound? Because it's from previous experiences, the consciousness recorded previous experiences, and those instructions are being sent automatically to your brain of how to heal certain areas in your body. So consciousness is shapeless. It's basically it's a bunch of information, a bunch of memory that being stick to this body for now. And it collects information through this body in this lifespan. And it's shapeless. It's something that feels. For example, if I ask you, whom do you like right now? Who is experiencing this conversation? Right now, who sees me? If we cut your head and check your skull, like what's happening there, there are no pictures of Mira in your brain. There are no sounds in your brain. But that is like something that collects this information, sends back to consciousness, and then consciousness makes this image together, including the sounds, including the image. And it all, we have to understand that if we don't like the image, if we don't like how we feel,
Right.
if we don't like this illusion, first of all, we have to understand that whatever collects this information, it's going through previous experiences and it filters it through
Yes.
previous experiences. If we want to get out from this karmic circle, we have to understand that this will no longer working in our favor, that there is a need for us to grow in how we perceive life.
I think there's a lot of truth to what you're saying there, where like, if you were to look into my brain, you wouldn't see an image of you or you wouldn't hear you. But I mean, our brain, as I understand it, and I'm no scientist, but it breaks down the sensory input into some form of energy or neural signals, right? But that's a language that we can't really understand consciously, I guess. But like you say, what I'm seeing is those signals, but it's filtered through so many, like you say, experiences, thoughts. What have I had to eat today? What have I had have I had enough caffeine today to get through this? Right. So do you think that there's a problem in today's culture where people, they don't, there's a disconnect between maybe not mind and body, but this belief of like what the self actually is. And we see ourselves as being something whole, whereas we're maybe, because after we talked, I had some other experiences and I just went down an interesting train of thought where maybe the self is not a whole being. And there's a lot of belief that it is, but to me, maybe it's something like we're really just part of a larger flowing band of energy or something like that. And it sounds crazy. And there's people listening going, these people are out of their minds. But maybe my question to you is, how do you view the self? Is it a collection of things, or is it a whole, or how do you make sense of that?
I know that my body is not me. What's mine cannot be me. I'm the one who is experiencing my body. I'm the one who is experiencing my thoughts. So if I don't enjoy my thoughts, instead of trying to fix, some people think, I don't like that person. That person is doing something wrong. So that's the 3D dimension of consciousness,
Right.
where you have a division between this is me and this is the world outside. Once you understand that this is how you see that person, and whatever impression of that person you have, it's happening within. And you are filtering inbound information that's being sent from, reflection into yourself. And that creates the impression in your consciousness. So it's your impression of this person based on your previous experiences. So if I don't enjoy some feelings, some thoughts, I will first of all stop doing anything I'm doing, and I become being for that particular moment until I understand where these thoughts are coming from. I would dive deeper into my past memories, into my past life, into right now, to be honest, because I had that spiritual experience.
Right.
Nobody, no human being on planet Earth will bother me. Like, it won't trigger me. And I achieved that level where in everybody, I could feel myself. Once you achieve the level where you know that people are acting, if they are angry at you, it means they are suffering. They are in a suffering state of being. They are in pain. Why would I be angry with the person who is suffering? If I feel that person's pain, why I would be angry with that person? So if you start experiencing and feeling everything around you, how you feel yourself, would you harm that person, even if that person is angry at you? Would you be angry with that person if you're experiencing that person as a part of yourself? Because consciousness is boundless. I am centered here right now. This is my antenna here right now. But I can evolve spiritually and consciously to the level where I can have a cosmic identity. I can embrace humanity on planet Earth. I can evolve it further and feel the consciousness of planet Earth and where it is right now. So consciousness is boundless, but your body is an antenna. So it's localized here.
Yeah, I'm thinking a lot about something that maybe Jesus said about forgive them because they know not what they do, right? People are just
Jesus is a master, is one of the biggest masters who figured it out,
right?
Who understood how the universe works, and it's all one energy. We are all one energy with different vibrations.
Mm,
So for that time where he lived more than 2000 years ago,
right.
obviously he used his own methods of delivering this type of information.
Hmm.
And that's why, a lot of people today, where we have computers and technology and all this stuff that was created by human mind,
Right.
but all this is coming from deeper memories from, if we look at how technology works, there is a hardware, there is software,
Right.
and there is cloud. So hardware is basically the equivalent of our body. Software is how our mind is programmed based on previous experiences. It's
Mm.
automatic. And then cloud is boundless consciousness.
That's a
So
really
any
useful way to look at that. That's great.
so Jesus figured it out more than 2000 years ago.
And then we figured it out again, and we're able to build it externally. Like, I was actually talking to some friends last night, and they said, well, I think we need a new religion, because you might say that there's a super progressive sort of politics going on that is sort of religious in a sense. I said, I think we even need a new religion. And one of them said, well, I think it's technology. Like, I think what you're talking about, where you've got hardware, software, and the cloud, couldn't that be seen to be some form of, I don't want to say salvation, but it's like an external uh, creator in some sense?
Whatever we create, we are creators creator, and we are the creator. So we are creating our own reality. And I think the problem with people is that they need religion, they need
Yes.
technologies, they need, this is to be honest, when I start learning about my true nature,
Mm-hmm.
I actually understood that my consciousness doesn't need anything. It's just a natural flow, because we're
Mm.
built, we are a model of how the whole universe is built, how the creator is
Sure.
working. We are an idea of creator. We are the creator's idea being manifested
Right.
in physical shape and form. So I think we don't need religion. We just need to reconnect with ourselves. If
Mm.
every human being finds their true nature and understand that they are not their body, that they are not their mind, then if they stop identifying themselves with their thoughts and physical shape,
Mm.
that will be a good beginning. And, that will be a good step towards shifting from separation consciousness to unity consciousness. Because 3D dimension we are in right now,
Mm-hmm.
it's basically still a separation consciousness where as soon as you get angry, I automatically get triggered and we're both angry.
Right.
So this is when you have a separation between what's me and you defend yourself when you feel threatened.
Hmm.
And it happens
Yep.
in conversation, it happens in physical world, it happens, okay, this is my nation and somebody is attacking my nation, I'm gonna go for war. So this is separation consciousness. Unity consciousness is when you understand the pain of every human being. You feel the pain of Earth, planet Earth, and you just sit down and bring yourself into the state which is higher vibration than
Okay.
even peace. If you are full of love, wherever you go, in that state, you won't be sharing war principles. You won't be sharing anger.
Right.
If you are in a state of love, it's contagious. People will feel it. You will be basically passing you on to other people.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even need to say that to the person. The way you smile at that person, the way you are even being, it's contagious. It's like when a flower is blossoming, you feel the smell, beautiful smell, and it can go 1 meter, 2 meter, depending how intensive the smell is. The same thing is happening with a human being. If your nature of being is love and it's intensive and it's constant, it's going to be contagious around your antenna.
Right. Now
So there is no need for religion. There is no need to God, like to make a technology as a God, because technology is, a lot of people, instead of using technology towards spreading love, towards spreading, this good contagious stages of being, they are spreading messages of separation. They're using it towards creating, further separation between people, further separation between nations, separation, even confusing themselves. So if technology is used to bring planet Earth to one consciousness and unify this consciousness, that's an amazing thing.
Right.
But if it's utilized towards people's understanding, very narrow understanding who they are,
Right.
and towards narrow identities that they carry, it can be dangerous.
I think you're absolutely right. If religion or technology could unify people, it would be a great thing. But I mean, has it ever really done that? Probably not. But don't you think that religion is, or do you think that religion is sort of a way for us to put into words, into language, these concepts that you're talking about? So you're talking about them very eloquently, but I can guarantee you a lot of people are listening and going, "What?" But and I'm following and I'm fine with it. But don't you think that religion is kind of the language of maybe of energy, or the language of love, or the language of consciousness, trying to speak? It's weird because you're using language to talk about something that's not linguistic, right? It's language is way down here, and consciousness is infinitely higher above that. So do you think that there is still a benefit for religion as a way to start to understand these things?
I think whatever is right now, it's in a perfect shape. It's the way religion is viewed, the way people view religion. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong to have beliefs. Nothing wrong with whatever it is. I don't create resistance,
Okay.
and because as soon as you create resistance, it creates inflammation, whether in your consciousness, and then if it's constant inflammation, it's being manifested in your body. So whatever, I don't resist. I go with the flow. Whoever is ready to hear, I can share. Whoever is not ready, time will come, because every soul is on its evolutional journey. And maybe if it's not in this lifetime, it will happen in next lifetime. And I just know for sure that every soul is striving for the same, which is this awakening and actually realizing that you are not your body. But in terms of religion, so what happened before, anybody who figured this out, anybody who understood that your body is an antenna, it's not you,
Right.
it's liberation experience, because you are not squeezed in this little box called physical body, and you feel this tremendous feeling of liberation, where it's like consciousness boundless, and you understood that you are that consciousness, that anything that you are the creator. And then you started understanding the illusionary nature of your thoughts and how your mind is operating. So and then you see people who are suffering from their thoughts. Of course, you want those people to experience the same, because you feel everybody's pain, how you feel your own. So anybody who experienced this liberation or enlightenment or spiritual awakening, they try to develop methods and tools to actually bring every soul towards that experience. And what happened before is that religions were created by, Buddha created Buddhism.
Sure.
Jesus, Christianity. Then there is Islam. There are other movements and stuff. So it happened 2000 years ago. And then human beings who didn't experience it in their own nature, who didn't feel that eternal boundless consciousness and eternal creator, and that we are actually all one ocean of consciousness.
Sure.
They tried to interpret it by physical means without having it in your own experience. Trying to interpret it in your own means, that created wars for to spread Christianity, that created this push that you have to be Christian because that's the way of truth. No, this is already the point where it's getting wrong, where religion is creating separation in a consciousness, because there is a rule here. We live in a rule where there is a veil of forgetfulness, where we don't remember our past life when we are landed in our physical body.
Sure.
You can get there if you experience enlightenment, and I was able to do past life regression, and I know why I came to this life. That's why I just know why I'm here. That makes life so much more beautiful.
Yeah.
And so there is veil of forgetfulness, and then there is a rule of free will. Free will, it means that every soul is on its spiritual journey. And soul is this localized, personalized, non-material, beyond space and time consciousness. something that is closer to your body,
Sure.
basically. That's within, that's around it. Some people can expand it to all humanity and
Okay.
planet Earth, like I said. Some people have a very localized consciousness, which is this soul that is just evolving.
Hmm.
There is nothing good or bad. It's just every soul on its stage of evolution, but every soul is looking for the same. So if you are pushing this information onto the soul, onto the consciousness that is not ready to observe,
Sure.
that's already wrong, because you are creating resistance to what it is. It has to be as if you are planting seeds. You are saying something, and then you let it be with that person, because anything you say, it can trigger an amazing thought process in another human being,
Right.
and it can bring that human being to self-realization of who they are. So it doesn't have to be pushy. It doesn't have
Right.
to have this pressure that you have to be Christian, you have to be this, you have to be that. So Christianity was just a way to develop methodology of how to get to the enlightenment stage.
Yeah, it's almost like people have to get there at their own pace, or it's like you say, it's not real, right? It's not a real transformation if you haven't got to the point yourself, right? Like you can't. That's what religion ultimately fails to do, and technology might fail to do that because it'll accelerate it artificially. But it's like you're trying to push something that's not
In
getting
your
there.
experience,
Sure,
that's not,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, you're pushing an external experience on somebody. Can you maybe tell me how it is that you came to see the world this way? Like, I again, not to externalize any of this, but like I know, and even myself, I'm listening to what you're saying, and I'm like, I'm not really there. I can get on board, and I appreciate what you're saying. But how did you personally come? Like, did you have a guide or somebody in your life that looked at the world this way and helped you see it, or is it more of you had to go down the road yourself?
See, like how I remember myself, and how I perceive world from young years, from early years in my childhood.
Mm,
I felt like I never been a kid. I felt like I was just born an adult right away, because I always had this curiosity about existential aspects of life, like why we're here, what life is about. Do we really have we really come here to be born, to eat and drink, to reproduce, to make money and die? I mean, this is nonsensical. This is nonsensical if you think that that's the mission of your life. So this is where people just grasp life on a physical dimension and physical level, and
sure.
where they identify themselves with their body and with their thoughts.
Right.
Once you grasp it, on a higher dimension, you start remembering what you're here for.
Mm,
And this natural seeking instinct, it's there in every human being. So for me, it was just very activated from early age. And when my mom died at the age of 6, I started writing poems.
okay.
So I started writing poems about life, about feelings, about love. And in fact, I even have I carry this book with me because sometimes it helps me with my past life regression. When I
Okay.
read my poems when I was 6, that's still the age where you haven't created your own ego in this
Sure.
present life, and you can actually dive into earlier
Mm,
subconscious memories. So for me, reading my poetry from early age helps me to remember what I came here for. And then these questions were always on the back of my mind. I was always asking these questions, trying to figure it out.
mhm,
And obviously, inbound information from present life, from this lifespan, started to come in. That which is the information, the environment I was growing up, the way my dad raised us.
sure.
My dad is an amazing guy, and I love every human being, and I actually uh, understand why my dad raised us in a very strict way, because he feels a lot of pain himself, unreconciled pain.
Okay.
And the way that I started perceiving life is that this is me, this is anything else, this is how I see myself, and I have to be independent. I have to make certain amount of money, and because my dad always created this healthy competition between me and my sisters. Or if my sister is studying in Germany,
Mm-hmm.
I can't be behind. I should apply to a master's program in Canada. So it just, that environment, competitive environment with separation consciousness, always uh, perfected this my
Mm.
ego, which is who I think I am and how the world around me should be.
Right.
And that structure started becoming very rigid and not flexible. That's where human beings start to experience a lot of pain,
Mm.
because if your mental structure in this physical body is not flexible, anything that comes your way and it's beyond what you can accept, beyond the boundaries of your mental structure.
Mm-hmm.
Because on that level, you still divide. This is right, this is wrong. This is pain, this is pleasure. This is happiness, this is unhappiness. This is life, this is death. At that level, still a separation consciousness. And if
Mm.
those boundaries are very rigid,
Sure.
it becomes dangerous and it causes a lot of suffering, because life consciousness, you will be attracting, without knowing, you will be attracting situations which will create enough pain for you to grow and expand your boundaries.
Mm.
Because if something happens and something causes pain, you want to figure it out. You want to figure it out, not the way of building more defense, but you want to reconcile it within and understand that this pain is coming because illusion of my thoughts, illusion of my mind. Anyways, my mental structure became very rigid here in Canada, especially with immigration, how you have to go through so many changes in environment, including,
Yep.
I think, using English on the regular basis actually also was one of the things that triggered the different processes in your mind.
Oh.
Because I grew up in Ukrainian speaking environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, being transplanted into a different environment, I started thinking it caused evolution in me, because I said the different circumstances, they either can kill you or you can evolve from them. So in my case, I evolved, and it triggered, I would say, this existential search even further. And I started noticing that the more pain I was compounding, I was developing stronger defense to defend these mental boundaries of
Sure.
who I think I am. And it started, relationship wise, I always wanted to experience true love. We're all seeking love. We're all looking for love, because love is something that brings us back to the source. Love is something that helps us feel another person, how we feel ourselves. It's something that helps us get closer to this enlightenment, I would say. So
Okay.
love is the answer, definitely. So I met someone in 2020, in spring 2020. I met someone who was exactly the mirror of my rigid structure, my rigid mental, who I thought I am. I basically saw myself in this male body. And because his rigid mental structure was exactly like mine, career driven, principles, this is how it should be.
Sure.
This is either my way or the highway, a lot of defense mechanism. It's basically started reflecting everything that in me that wasn't reconciled. And two strong individuals with strong mental structure which are not flexible, the only thing it's like when you feel that this is the person you've been knowing forever, but the connection doesn't grow because there is constant crash of two rigid structures, right?
Sure.
So I started understanding myself and figuring out what is this mental structure about. When he told me that you are too strong, why does he see me this way? Yes, but because this is the way I think that I'm strong and independent. That's why he sees me this way. So the way I see myself, other people see me the same way. So I started from psychology level, where I basically dismantled my mental structure of who I think I am, why I think I am like this, why I think I'm strong and independent, why I think I have to have six pack and work out like crazy, why I think I have to eat, with a diet like this.
Yeah.
And when you put yourself into those boxes, that creates resistance to what it is, and it creates inflammation and pain. So energy does not disappear. Energy is can be either compressed or transformed.
Hmm.
So just think about it. Emotion. What is it? It's energy motion. So there is a certain direction the energy going. Each emotion has its own vibration, type of vibration. So when you start understanding that energy does not disappear and you compress it within, whether it's energy of anger, anxiety, stress, a resistance to what it is, all that would compound. If you're just constantly using defense mechanism, you are improving your mental structure to be strong enough to keep that pressure within. So that's what's happening. So I started feeling that pain. And what happened is that I basically I tried to understand why I think this way about myself, why, who is Mira, who is experiencing this. And it was a crazy transformation. It was a crazy, I would say, 6 to 8 months, where it started in August, where I just 9 p.m. I'm in Edmonton, deciding to drive to Vancouver at night and tell this person that I love him, because love is a compass.
Sure.
It's a heart chakra. And when you open it up, it's like you let that energy go from the lowest chakras, which is, there is a chakra of survival, which is the basic one. Then there is a second one, the chakra that is responsible for self, who you think you are. Then the third level chakra, or it's a yellow chakra, it's you and others, the society. And then the fourth chakra, which is green chakra, is a chakra of love, where two types of energy, they meet together: universal energy and this energy that you take from planet Earth, which is more physical type of energy. So when you open up that heart chakra, which is love, it completely triggered like the opposite processes in my mind. The thoughts that I used to have, I started seeing differently. It was the opposite of everything I thought was true. And culmination of this, or top, I would say the peak of this process happened when first of all, during the month of August, I lived in my car for a month. I slept in my car. It was for me a way to reconnect with my inner self. I was basically living in nature, observing nature, how everything works, observing that flower, how it's effortlessly blowing. And I couldn't understand why human beings doesn't know how to do that, So I started paying attention to so many little things. And then after that 1 month of living in my car and sleeping in nature, I decided to go to Ukraine, to the place where I grew up, because that's where my spirit was calling me. I just felt like I needed to come back there with how I am now. So that environment where I grew up and where my old self was formed, now when I come different, the environment will be different. So I decided to go to Ukraine. And in October, end of October, I will never forget this end of month of October, where it was close to full moon. When these experiences are happening, it's very connected to outer world, to the cycles of planet Earth, to the cycles of moon, because anything physical is doing its cycles. So this enlightenment experience happened to me on full moon in October, end of October. And that's basically, it's like, if you describe it in physical world, because it's a beyond physical experience, beyond physical world. If I would try to put it into words, it's basically what happened is that mental old self, which is mental structure, which was so rigid, which was very unflexible, it's like as if it blow out. It was an explosion of all these rigid boundaries of old self. So this is the old self disillusion, where your ego is trying to still, to the last moment, your ego is still trying to protect these boundaries and trying to convince this is something crazy happening to you, like you are going crazy, you need to see a psychiatrist, this is insane. And your ego is playing these thoughts because your ego is all for survival, right? And some people call it ego, I call it mental structure. I just find that ego is very corrupted word. So this mental structure is just so rigid and it's trying to stay there, and it's like yeah, you need to see a psychiatrist, you need to figure it out, it's something crazy happening to you, and it's so scary. Like, what? It's like, it's as if you're experiencing death. This is what death is actually
Sure.
is. This structure that's been built throughout years, if you haven't worked on making it flexible,
Right.
that's what happens in death, because people are identifying themselves with it. So this is the moment where this old self dissolves, and you are now nothing. And you now don't know where you are, because you understand that the all 32 years in this body, your mind was playing tricks with you, and your mind was creating illusion that this is who you are. And you feel like you are broken, and you feel like you're being used or you're being played. But again, those are the feelings of old self.
Right. Right.
So anything related to scarcity, to fear, to this type
Mm.
of emotions, or abandonment, or you are being played, it's all ego trying to figure out what's happening.
Mm.
So that was that scary moment. And I wish I had someone, who at that moment could share that, Mira, don't worry, it's a natural process of evolution of consciousness.
Right.
It's just embrace it, don't resist it, don't fight with it, just embrace it and watch it from a side. Just watch how your old self dissolves. So nobody was around, and in my, I just didn't
Mm.
information, like some gurus who would share about stuff like this, who would, I was listening to these videos 24/7 because I couldn't understand what's happening. And
Right.
psychiatrists couldn't give me the explanation, because psychology is still on the level of explaining your old self, your ego,
Yes. It's
basically.
not enough. Psychology.
It's not, no, not enough at all. So it wasn't helping, and I couldn't understand what was happening with me. And I would say for a good week I was in a no man's world, in like not knowing who you are, not knowing why you're here for, like all these crazy thoughts, and I would say then it became for me when I started recollecting what my compass is. Like, it had started from love. So this world is full of love. This, the whole nature, how it's evolving, how it's the cycles of winter and spring and summer and autumn. All this stuff started to put together into a picture, and it just became. It's as if you are merged with everything. Like, you can experience the feelings the dog is going through. You
Mm.
can actually experience what the dog is feeling, or you can experience what the flower is feeling. Like, it's a beautiful state, and I started embracing it.
If you're enjoying this conversation, please subscribe on YouTube and give us a like. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please subscribe and leave a 5-star review. And now, back to the conversation. So, can you tell me what was the moment on that full moon night? What was it a moment, or was it built up to that and you just had that realization, or what did that? It sounds to me like the structure broke down at that point, right? And you just,
Yeah.
it's almost like light shone out from you, or whatever you want to call it, but you became more open to allowing the flow to happen through you, or what was it? Was it a singular instance, or was it just a process? This awakening.
So the awakening process, it's a process.
Sure.
So like I said, it started in August, where I lived in my car,
Right.
and I started doing crazy things and blah blah blah, and then I went to Ukraine, and
Right.
But the peak of this awakening happened around full moon in October, around 28th of October, until I would say 2nd of November. And in between of those days, right on the moon, that was I would say, like good 10 or 12 hours, where you are nothing and you are nowhere. You just, it's you are beyond time. It's hard to explain in words, because this 10 hours, it's like it was a mix of, oh my god, what's happening. And I laid down, and I was like, I shouldn't do anything, I just should be, because we're human beings, right?
Best.
And I was like,
yeah,
this is something crazy happening. I just laid down, and I felt like when I laid down, as if something downloaded into my it's hard to
No,
explain,
no,
but
I could
it's
see
like
that.
it's influx of energy
Hmm.
where you feel like you are the universe, you are everything. This universal flows of energy starting coming into the body that is not physically experienced it before, and it like lights up. Even your eyes are closed, but it lights up everything within what you see. It lights it up as if like if you are uploading certain sort of like a software into your brain.
Mm.
And then this happened. I couldn't fall asleep for a few hours, but I felt like this, like I literally felt an instant where this was downloaded into me. Like I could, in a word, I would say that the best word to I could choose would be downloading cosmic intelligence into your brain.
But now,
And
download is a very technological word. So what if you had to use a different word?
oh, it's just so hard because it's like as if a switch has happened. A switch happened, it lights it up. You don't know what it is. I fell asleep and I woke up, and it's like it's a different way you see life.
Hmm.
So it's not something that happened externally, it's something that happened within me. And I remember I was crying when I
Oh,
woke
okay.
up. I was crying. My sister still remembers it, and my dad remembers it. And for them, it was, they thought I was going crazy. They thought that like something crazy was happening with me.
Right.
But in fact, what was happening is that I started feeling the pain. Like I became pain sensitive to the pain of every human being, because I started feeling that they are robots. Like I started seeing every human as a robot because they are playing the software, automatic software that they didn't
Right.
choose.
Right.
Their soul is trying to figure out why it came into this physical body, but the software doesn't allow the software, which is not upgraded,
Hmm.
doesn't allow the soul to evolve from within. And I started seeing that compression in every human being, and in my dad, in his wife, like anybody that I saw, every human being I saw. I would go to the store, but my dad would ask me to buy some groceries. I would go to the store and I would feel the pain of the person who was selling stuff in the like grocery store.
Hmm.
Like I would go to anywhere I would go, I started feeling pain. I was like, come on, like this has to be something better than this. Like this experience that I had
Yeah.
has to bring me to better experiences at pain, because I became so pain sensitive. Like anywhere I would go, I would feel the pain of everybody. Then I spent more time in nature than I ever did. Like I would go for walks with the dog. And there was my dad lives in the village, and I would say like every family that lives there has a dog. And there is still an old dog that I remember from my childhood that I was so scared of.
Hmm.
I was so scared of that dog before that, even like I couldn't step next to him. So when I was doing my walk and this dog started barking at me, and I started feeling what this dog is feeling, I basically started understanding that he is barking at me because I'm scared of him. And when I'm scared of him, I can harm him.
Hmm.
So that's why fear is a dangerous feeling, because out of fear, people harm others. So when
Yes.
I removed that fear and I started seeing the miracle, because that dog has a spirit, it's something that makes him alive, and I reconnected with the spirit of the dog. The dog just laid down,
Wow.
and I started, petting him, and I hugged him, and it was the feeling as if I reconnected with the dog's spirit, and the dog was not barking at me anymore. In fact, he was looking with me with loving eyes, because I was looking at him with the not fearful eyes, but with the eyes that saw the beauty in him.
So let me forgive me if this is too forward, but you said that your mother passed away when you were young, 6 years
Yes,
old. Do you, because
yes.
that's a traumatizing experience, no doubt. Do you think that trauma, because personally, when I was around that age, a little younger, experienced something traumatic in a different way. It's not something I talk about publicly, but do you think that that in some ways opened a door or made the potential for you to have this? Because what you're talking about is not something that many people experience, I don't think, and could not hope to. It's almost like you had something happen to you that probably happens on a lot of people's deathbeds or in the last few years of their life when there's kind of that aha. Do you think that being traumatized at such a young age made that potential for you to have this sort of spiritual growth, this by leaps and bounds? Because you're what? You're in your 30s?
I'm 32.
32.
Yeah.
So I'm 31. So do you think is that the case? That sort of early life trauma just, it sends you completely down a path that maybe some other people, in some ways I feel fortunate for what happened to me. Do you look
You
back
should feel fortunate.
do you look back in
Yes.
some ways and feel that too?
So I know that I chose those circumstances for me to happen when in between before my incarnation into my body. I see like every soul is on its journey, and when the person leaves, when the soul, I'll call it soul, even though this word is corrupted a bit, but I'll call it soul. When a soul leaves physical body, there is something that's happening, reconciliation of all experiences in this life that happens. It happens. There is some time, it's being taken by the soul to reconcile all the feelings and states that the soul went through in this lifespan. Based on those feelings and states that this soul went through in this life, the soul carries certain type of vibration or certain type of energetic signature. So if this soul was carrying the states of fear, the states of anxiety, and it was a dominating feeling in the physical structure that it resided, this soul will choose to incarnate into the family that has similar vibrations of feelings. It will. That's why it's so important for pregnant women to be so honest with themselves in terms of how they feel. If they feel anger or anxiety, they don't have to develop defense against it and suppress it. They have to understand that that is an illusion of their mind and reconcile it, because those are vibrations that are attracting certain type of souls with certain type of vibrations. So I remembered my past life, and I remembered that in my past life, the same thing happened to me because I lost both of my parents in my early age my past life. And that also stimulated my enlightenment experience happened to me in my 40s, in my past life. So when I was leaving my physical body in my past life, based on my experiences that I had after enlightenment, which was the theme was that love can bring every human being to this state of enlightenment. That was the thought that I left my body with in my past life. So with this thought, basically, the soul chooses the families, chooses the circumstances that will accelerate that to further evolution. So it was supposed to be that I would be born by a woman who will die when I'm 6.
So
because even in my mom, I know that my mom's soul is on its own journey. That's why I don't see physical death as something bad. For some souls, it's the best experience that can happen to them because it stimulates their further evolution, soul's evolution. So I know exactly that for my mom's soul, that's exactly what was needed for her soul's evolution.
Okay. But so at what age or what point did you come to that realization? Like I can imagine growing up.
Oh, it's right now.
It's now. So it was a lot of years
after this happened to me. After this enlightenment experience.
And then then in some ways you were really able to lay that physical image of your mom to rest and be okay with it, and whereas before not so much.
Yeah, so before I kind of felt that soul connection,
Hmm.
but because I didn't have a chance to dive to that level of myself to feel my own soul.
Mm.
It was more about like a fiction type in my head. My mom's soul is good. She is not suffering. My mom's soul is doing well. I was trying to mentally, intellectually convince myself, but
Right.
then I was like, soul? But like, what is soul? But if you don't feel your own soul, how can you experience the soul of another being, right? So for me right now, how I see the death of my mom
Hmm.
after the spiritual experience that I had, completely different how I saw the death of my mom before.
Hmm. I imagine so. Yeah. So you have to get in touch with your own soul in some ways. Is that kind of what we're talking about here? Is a sort of complete and total. Well, like how I was talking about the self as like a collection of all these disparate elements. Would a spiritual awakening be something like a feeling of wholeness while understanding the fact that it's whole and singular? It's actually flowing and eternal. That make any
So for
sense?
me, that was the realization that I am the soul.
Right. Okay.
And and once you understand that it's not your soul, it's you are the soul, you can expand your soul, or science can call it consciousness. You
Okay.
can expand it, and you can become a planetary soul
Mhm.
where you will feel everything what's happening here. So soul is a localized consciousness in this antenna.
Okay. Do you think there's
Okay.
consciousness on other planets? Or how do you feel about the dimensions of the universe? Is it a multi-dimensional thing, or is it one universe, or what are your thoughts on that?
So I know for sure that I am a part of something bigger.
Okay.
So just like everything in the universe has fundamental same exactly design.
Mhm.
So if you look at human bodies, that's why every religion would say you are the god. You just don't know it. You
Right.
just don't you haven't woken up to it.
Sure.
You are the god. So we are, as humans, we are the universe, and every cell in our body, every organ in our body is being. And they are not realizing that they are actually working towards putting this body together.
Right. Right.
I I 100% guarantee you that your heart would never say, what the hell is wrong with this human being? Why I have to pump blood 84 years or 100 years, like for nothing? The
Right.
heart doesn't ask that question, just pumping,
Mm.
pumping for the wholeness of the body. So that's what a human being should be. Once you feel that you are a part of a bigger body, of
Mhm.
something bigger
Just
that
pump.
also has these feelings,
Right.
you're gonna be pumping blood and enjoying it. And right now, pumping blood for me is spreading this enlightenment
Okay.
message and helping every human being to experience the beauty of and miracle of life. And this is pumping blood for me right now. And because I know that if every cell, do you mind me asking, if every cell of your body
Mhm.
is happy, do you feel any pain in your body?
Ah, good question. I don't think it's possible for every cell to be happy. I think I always
See,
feel some sort of pain.
you always see, for me, every cell of my body is bursting with happiness, even right now with my injury.
Hmm.
And that's what that happens when you start knowing who you are. And that happens when your rigid structure doesn't harm you. That happens when you let yourself be, when you don't torture your body and say, you have to have six packs. That's why you have to go work out 3 hours every day. So there are people think that they love themselves that way, but in fact it's them actually working hard towards their illusion of who they think they are,
Hmm.
right? So when you remove all that bullshit from your mind and you know how to be, every cell in your body already knows that.
Hmm.
It's just because you were terrorizing. I was terrorizing it in my mental structure.
Right.
I was terrorizing this beautiful body that
Right.
was created by evolution. And it's a miracle how it's healing right now, how everything is happening in my body. It's a miracle. Like every cell knows what to do when the injury happens. Isn't it a miracle?
It
Don't
is a
we have
miracle.
every cell is a sentient being. Everything evolution started from a one cell organism, and it evolved, and now we are like this. So and that's the same thing when you asked about if there are other civilizations and stuff. For sure, we are a cell of a bigger organism.
Right, right. And I've been thinking about maybe whatever God is, or our understanding of that, is that it's the language between all things. Every cell in your body speaks to every cell of the flower, of the plant, of the other person. And I just think that maybe that would sure help a lot of people. Maybe that's what your message is, where it's like, see yourself as part of the whole, functioning as part of the whole, not this closed off unit.
Exactly. Yeah. So, for example, I can translate it into social situations. Sure. You, let's say, you talk to your friend, right? And your friend is saying, Patrick, you are not a good person. You are doing wrong things. You should not do this. You should not do that.
Right.
So the normal automatic reaction in a 3D consciousness would be, who the hell are you to tell me this? Right. The defenses, la. But you have to understand that even this feeling that your friend is having about you, it's a lower vibration feeling.
Right.
Happy human being would not say anything like that.
Right.
So when you start understanding that this is not coming from a happy place, instead of elevating it to the next level and being and let it being contagious, and you and your friend bringing you into the same unhappy place, you actually will shine up with happiness to the level
right.
where your friend will feel better after. Even you can be quiet, you shouldn't say anything, but your job is to bring this human being, because this is a cell in a larger body,
right.
to a happy state, because right now this person is not in a happy state.
Right. And that's something like what you experienced with that dog, right? But how then, just for some practical advice for anybody who's still on this ride with us right now, let's say people have that friend who's saying, you should do this, you shouldn't do that, you're doing this wrong. Because that can be coming from a happy place, right? But maybe they're wording it in a way that's very negative. But how do we, as a person who's enlightened, or how do you as a person that's enlightened, improve for others? How do you help them find that enlightenment? Because like we said, we can't force it. But are there behaviors, responses to starting them that way?
You have to be that way.
Sure.
If you're always happy, that's your fragrance. That's your soul's signature. Love, if you always feel love, you don't need to express it. All you need to do is to be love. This has to be your energetic signature, no matter what happens. And you don't have to force yourself to love. See, like this enlightenment experience helps you to feel exactly what this person feels. So if you mentioned that, those people, you basically didn't like what they said, didn't like what they do, blah, blah, blah. But instead of saying that this is this people's issue, see, this is separation already coming.
Sure.
This is this people issue. It's not my issue.
Right.
This is as if you are looking at the mirror and you don't like what you see, and you are trying to fix the image in the mirror.
Right.
Instead of trying to understand why I see those people that way. And why I feel this when I talk to those people. Am I reflecting my state in them? And am I making it contagious and sustaining that state in them? Because obviously, if your thought was, this is this people's problem, it's not my problem, I shouldn't be worried about it. This is a compression way of handling energy, right? Where you compress it within and you try to find an explanation. This is not my problem. But this is, in fact, if you are thinking that this is not your problem, this is already a problem.
Ah,
Because you are externalizing the way you feel. You try to explain it by external means, that this is other people
right,
problem, this is not my problem.
right.
So what happens in that state, I would say, anytime when you hear something that triggers you, just know it's your own trigger. It has nothing to do with those people.
Mm,
And right now, before you experience, you can't feel what they feel. For now, the exercise you could do, catch yourself when you are being triggered.
right.
And at that moment, my recommendation, when you are triggered, just know that that trigger has been sent to you, to your soul, for spiritual growth. And that's why meditation is so important, because you have to shut up at that moment. When you are triggered,
Shut
you
up and
have to
listen.
ask, hey guys, no. Hey guys, could we maybe reconnect? I just have something coming up here. Could we reconnect? Somebody's calling me or whatever. When you start feeling that you are being triggered,
Mm-hmm.
that's your problem. It has nothing to do with them. So you have to shut up and stop doing anything and become being and
Mm,
meditate and understand why I am being triggered. What exactly triggers me and why? And then you will remember that in the past, maybe there were situations where you felt similarly, and
mm,
your brain developed, you developed certain defenses that now being triggered, because your mental body is like this.
mm-hmm.
You can, in that situation, you don't need to say that you love them, you know.
No,
Yeah,
no.
you don't have to do that. All you have to do is to understand how, like, why you are feeling this way. Instead of thinking how they feel, you start from understanding how you feel, and you look in your mirror and say, Patrick feels like shit today. This happened. Why does Patrick feels like shit today?
Oh my God. Yeah, that's how every day starts. Just kidding. But it's crazy because what like when they treat me in a certain way, I understand that it's not about me, right? It's about their internalization of whatever. But then you're telling me when they behave this way to me that I can't I have to understand that I'm being triggered internally. So it's like, are we not even having a interaction? Is it just too like that's pretty fucked up.
It's a crash of two mental structures. That's what happens.
Right.
They have their own mental structure where their consciousness vibrations reside. They see it this way. It's not flexible.
Mm-hmm.
You have your own, and a crash happens. So the job, enlightenment, what enlightenment is doing with our consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
is that the state you're in, it's contagious. If you see that this person is not flexible with their mental structure, so you become their lubricant, and it's a quiet action.
Okay.
You actually trying to make that structure being more flexible by making yourself more flexible.
Hmm. Now, some people would say that sounds like you're bending to their structure. To
Why not?
their
What's wrong with that,
well,
Patrick?
well, don't you lose a sense of yourself? Like if I rearrange myself to suit somebody else's structure, that seems problematic to me. It seems like you're losing your humanity in some ways, or your
It's not a
soul.
problem to me.
You don't
I
think
can
so?
bend to. Oh no! Right now, it doesn't matter to me.
Really? So you're saying that
I have a very minimum sense of self right now. I'm nothing, basically.
that's hilarious. But that makes life a lot easier to live, I guess. But okay, so then that's a very non-ego driven. So
Patrick,
you're
we
saying
have
to
nothing to gain and nothing to lose.
right.
Bending towards someone, all this bullshit, it's an illusion of your mind.
I guess, but if someone's treating you poorly, you're just saying to be quiet and let them
So
just get it out.
what happens is that, first of all, it's you seeing that they are
Uh,
treating you poorly, because maybe you are treating yourself poorly. Those are reactions that are being automatic. We just don't realize that the only reason we can see that somebody treats us poorly is only because we treat ourselves poorly. And by treating ourselves poorly, I mean, we still experience this emotions of anxiety, anger,
Sure.
stress. If those emotions are present in your life right now,
Right.
just know that you are treating yourself poorly.
Hmm.
And then
Well, that's possible.
that is being reflected in other people. First of all, that division between what's poorly, what's not poorly, it's only coming through, it's not coming from your soul.
Right.
It's coming from ego. It's coming from your mental structures, that division, what's poorly, what's not poorly. And first of all, what, like, this ego's illusion that you have stuff to gain, and something, if you lose, it's gonna be end of this, is an illusion, because death reconciles everything.
Right.
And the only thing you have is actually how you feel right now. If right now you're feeling amazing, who cares if somebody is even taking $100 from you, or taking $1,000 from you, or stealing your car? If you're feeling amazing, you know that this experience is sent to you to further understand your true nature. It's because you haven't reconciled it before. So once I started noticing from my own experience where it stopped triggering me, life presented to me new situations where I have to grow further, like the knee injury. I told you that I evolved to the level where people would not trigger me anymore.
Right.
Because I know where I can read every person, the state they're in, as if I know myself. So the lack of knowledge yourself,
Sure.
only that lets you think that they are treating you poorly, because you treating yourself poorly because of lack of knowledge who you truly are.
Yeah, I can see that, because like I was saying, as I perceived being treated a certain way, the solution to it was just to do the job that I was there to do. And we all worked together as a unit, as a collective with a goal. And that all sort of went away, whether they stopped or I stopped feeling it. I guess I'm going to have to wrap my head around that for a few more decades. But
would it help to neutralize
Sure.
that you can, for example, when you feel that you are being triggered, okay, just know that it's your ego triggered.
Right.
That it's not your being, your core being. It's an eternal being.
Right.
it has nothing to lose. It's a witness of what you are experiencing. So you can do the same action, you can say the same words, but carrying different energy behind it. It will help you to neutralize that energy. It will help you when you start looking at yourself and at your thoughts, at your reactions from a side.
Right.
And stop identifying yourself with Patrick. Stop identifying yourself with who you think you are, because this is a shell. Right. This is a mental construct. It's not permanent. It's temporary.
Right.
And the circumstances are sent to you to make them more flexible, because that's the evolution of consciousness that needs to happen. We have to evolve to unity consciousness.
Right.
So when you are being triggered, just know that your core being is just witnessing it and experiencing it.
Right.
And who is being triggered is that character that lives in your body.
Right. That's the ego? The character? Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So what?
And that is who you think you are.
Right. That's who I think I am. When really I'm not. It's like this. Yeah, it's this character that ties into like the idea of having like an inner monologue, right? That's probably ego driven as well, where I'm a figure going through a story, because that's probably the simplest and easiest way to understand what we're experiencing here. But I guess what you're saying is that it's much more than that.
So what is ego? Ego is basically your boundaries within this antenna. Your boundaries, somebody has, for example, my ego right now is more cosmic ego, I live in my illusion that I have to spread this message to people in any interaction.
Sure.
Not like have to, but plant the seeds. That's my illusion. I live in my illusion. That's my ego for now.
Okay.
But at least I chose to do it because I real like when my enlightenment happened, I realized that I have nothing to gain and nothing to lose because physical death reconciles everything. Everything that I fought for, let's say you think that people should treat you this way and you fight all your life to make sure people treat you that way. Will you enjoy that life?
Well, probably not, because you're externalizing everything.
Because you're fighting for illusion, for your
Right.
illusion, how everybody should treat you. It's like as if you are fighting the sun should wake up not on on the opposite side of the
Right.
sky because you don't like it. So that's exactly the same thing what happens, because you will never your boundaries mental construct will never 100% fit into anything. The only way for you to enjoy life is to make them flexible.
I guess so, because there's so much of it that's happening outside of you that you can't. How could I dare to even resist the flow of the universe?
But don't you think that in every human being there is a sub-logos of creator? Whatever they are saying, even if your mind is reading it as negative,
Right.
that trigger is being sent to you to bring you closer to understanding who you are.
Right. Well, that's
just know
right.
It's a sub logos. It's there is the main logos. We are part of something bigger. We are the sub logos, and there is a way to merge with that logos, and you become creator. Right? You are talking creator's language, basically. So every human being that triggers you, just know that that's God talking to you.
Right.
For purpose.
And you're saying logos, like Logos, like the word, like the sort of eternal language that's being spoken?
So we're talking how our consciousness operates, how our mind operates. Let's take our mind, okay? So we are a part of our mind is it's like a neuron in a larger mind.
Sure.
It's a neuron in a larger brain that's also thinking. So our mind is the model of larger mind.
Yeah, I totally am on board with this.
And there is a way to connect to that universal mind. There is a way to merge with universal consciousness. Once that happens, human beings won't trigger you.
Right.
So, and everything that being sent to us in our lives is supposed to make us closer towards realization that we are one. And whatever triggers us in other people, just know it's something that you haven't reconciled within yourself.
Understood. Now, is there a way for, like, do you think that the human race generally could get to a place where this was accepted, or is that just, are we too low of a physical being? Like, are we too under-evolved physically to ever get to this elevated consciousness as a society? You know, because you look around, clearly there's a lot of people who are unenlightened. I'm probably one of them, although you're helping me get closer. But there's some terrible, like, all of humanity has been a complete bloody war and a nightmare, you know, more or less. There's obviously beautiful moments and great moments, but I guess what I'm asking you is, do you see a way that this way of thinking, this way of being could become the universal among us? Or is it just, are there the select few who are destined to just try and push the message?
First of all, I see world in a bit different way right now. I embrace everything. There is nothing wrong happening. Even war is supposed to happen, because I told you that when this experience happened to me, I see death in a different way.
Sure.
Death is a liberation for the soul. And why they say rest in peace? Because that's the liberation of the soul from those constructs that were squeezing the soul in those parameters, and if they are not flexible, that creates pain. So basically, the wars and what we see right now, the pandemic, and a lot of anxiety and stress, and society is going through some turmoil. you know it just externally it looks like something horrible. It looks like something really bad for if you perceive life on a mind level and on a 3D dimension of life perception. But if you see what is happening in front of you from a higher dimension of consciousness, everything is just going its normal way of evolution. Because what's happening right now, it's a transition. Right now there is a transition in consciousness. People who are 3D consciousness level, they will have to move to fourth dimension. And fourth dimension is a chakra, heart chakra, of unconditional love and feeling everybody how you feel yourself. If I feel you, how, like, as a part of myself, would I want to go fight with you, or would I want to have war with you? Like, that will be the end of all wars. That will be the end of all cataclysm and fight. And that's where humanity will start acting as one system, as one organism. It's gonna, heart is not asking why it has to pump blood for the whole system. So that's the job of humanity, to realize that they are one organ of a larger organism. And if they are fighting, can you imagine if there was resistance between cells in your heart? Like one cell, I don't want to pump, another cell saying I have to pump. It's wrong.
That'd be a disease, right?
It is a disease. So right now it's a time for people to shift their consciousness to fourth dimension and understand that the best way to help humanity is to reconcile your own pain. Because if you are in a happy state of being, you won't go to war. If you are in a loving state of being, you will spread love. If you are in a state of fear, that's based on your understanding how the world should be. So when you understand that your understanding is an illusion, and you are not attached to it, you won't die for it, right? So belief of a human being can be dangerous. Some people blow up planes because they believe in certain interpretation of religion. So belief can be dangerous. And that's what bringing humanity right now to where we are, because people are fighting for their beliefs as if it's real.
Yes, that's exactly right. People are fighting for ideas as if those ideas were people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have to question you on you were saying you don't see war and death and disease and all this that's going on. You don't see that as a necessarily a negative thing. Like, you're viewing it in a way where it's like you see it as a transition, but there's so much suffering.
It's an accelerator.
How can you reconcile all that suffering?
Yeah, so pain that people get from wars and bad situations and all that, that's a way for their soul to evolve. And because, like I said, I see death as not something dark and bad. I mean, death happens to everybody, to every antenna, to every physical body. It happens. And yet, this is the only thing that people resist and are fearful of. So I think it has to start from fundamental understanding that death is not something that we have to be fearful of. It's not something that we have to escalate, because everything has a flow. Your life has a flow. And you have to embrace the flow. If, for example, your soul to further evolution has to experience death right now, and this is not something you can actually change. It's not up to you. Actually, it's not up to your ego to choose when to die, and it's up to your soul. It's the soul decides when the soul leaves the body. And I remember my past life. I remember what I experienced when I was leaving my body in my past life. Once human beings know what's up, they won't look at death with how they look at it right now.
Right.
So once you start looking at death from a different, it's like the opposite of how you see it right now. Everything in life you will see in a different way, and you will see more understanding of suffering.
Mm.
You will see more understanding of what souls are going through. You will shift from a separation consciousness to unity consciousness, and you will understand that we're all one. Even for me right now, to talk to the person or communicate with someone, to communicate with my mom, it's wordless communication with the
Right.
soul, that with the soul that resided in that body that I called mom. For me to connect with that soul, I don't need to have that soul embodied, you know. I can just feel it. It's a wordless communication.
Sure.
That's why you asked about civilizations, that other civilizations, they exist. There are civilizations that talk wordlessly. Only us, we need to hear it to know it. This is an illusion. There is a way to communicate wordlessly.
Right.
And that communication it can be opened up when you start feeling your own soul and who you truly are, and when you are completely unblocking your heart chakra.
And it has to start within, right? Yeah, it's up to the
Absolutely.
individual. The individual, whatever that means, it's up to you in your soul and your current form to start taking those steps.
Yes.
Do you have somewhere on social media or somewhere that you are putting out these ideas, or how, like, let's say someone's still listening and they wanted to start, they wanted to start this journey with you. Is there, do you do anything like that, or what are your plans for the future anyway?
See, I told you that I wrote poems when my mom died when I was 6 years old. I wrote poetry, and I wrote it until I graduated the university in Ukraine.
Okay.
And then I moved to Canada, and I like I said, immigration and all these circumstances were enhancing my rigid mental structure. So it was not up to writing poetry and stuff. So I didn't write poetry for about 10 years.
Okay.
And when this enlightenment experience happened to me, I started writing poetry again. And this is not the type of poetry that I wrote before, which was coming from pain, of unreconciled pain and pain of being lost and not understanding who I was at that time. Right now, it's more poetry that's coming from a happy place and a place of love, where basically the energy behind every word is to help other human beings to plant the seeds, not insistently, but to plant the seeds, and at least to wake up in them that instinct of seeking, because this has to happen from within. It's not something that you can read a book. Okay, this is not. You can't you can't become enlightened just to read it after reading a book.
No,
it has to happen from within, and once you experience it, you will basically start sharing this energy by the tools that your soul has. Because in my past life, I was also using language as a way of sharing this energy. I was writing books as well before, and I just felt like it's one of the tools in the toolboxes of the soul. And because every soul has its own toolbox.
okay.
Every soul has tools or talents, a set of talents. And the first, if you start feeling that you are not enjoying what you are doing, just know that you are not using the tools that your soul is equipped with.
It's beautiful.
And when I saw your Instagram, Patrick, I felt that you are using the tools of your soul.
Well, thank you. But sometimes I feel like I'm not. Sometimes I feel like I don't know what I want to do. But I guess for me there, it's to choose the things that come the easiest, actually, and not, like, to me, doing some of that photography with a vaguely interesting caption was very easy, and it was fun. A lot of my video production stuff, some days it comes easy and some days it doesn't, but I guess that's part of the struggle, is to actually find out what tools my soul has. It's not as easy as saying I have them and I use them. It's like, it's a lifelong journey perhaps to find out what tools you are best suited to use.
So how I feel with you right now is that you are in a group of more lucky people, because at least sometimes you feel like you're using the tools of your soul.
Sometimes.
Some people live the whole life doing things they hate.
Right.
And that is suffering. So they are just surviving. They are not living. So at least for you, it's 50-50. I don't know the percentage wise, but, that's already a great progress. And once, if enlightenment happens to you in this lifespan, or maybe who knows, in the next lifespan, who knows how long your soul will need to experience it. There is nothing wrong with where we all are. There is nothing wrong with that. But once that happens, I am sure that these tools that you are using right now will be elevated to the levels you could never plan or imagine.
I look forward to it. Mira, this has been very enlightening. I really thank you for your time. This was awesome.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Like I said, I try not to be pushy, and I try not to sound too crazy for people. But I hope I was able to plant some seeds,
Definitely.
into some people, and trigger that instinct of seeking, because like I said, it can only happen from within. It's not something that you can learn from somebody.
Right. And don't worry about sounding crazy, because you yourself would say, if you sound crazy to me, then I'm the crazy one. Something like that.
Exactly.
Thank you, Mira. This was awesome.
Yeah, you are very welcome. And it's great what you are doing. Keep up the great work, Patrick. And who knows, maybe in the future we will start a project together.
I think we should. I definitely think I know we will.
Yeah, awesome.
Thank you for listening to the North Bank Media Podcast. If you enjoy this conversation, please subscribe on YouTube and give us a like. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please subscribe as well and leave a 5-star review.